It's strange, isn't it? How the calmest nights often hide the loudest shifts. You go through your day thinking it's just another evening. Same air, same silence, same tired thoughts looping like an old film reel. But something feels off. The energy around you starts to hum, like the world's holding its breath. And deep down, you can feel it. Something's moving. You can't explain it. Can't point to it, but it's there. That eerie stillness before a storm. That quiet heartbeat of fate, getting louder with every second. Funny thing about surprises. They don't come wrapped in ribbons or announced with trumpets. They sneak in when you're too tired to hope, too numb to care, too drained to even pray properly. It's like the universe waits for the moment you stop reaching and finally let go, because that's when your grip loosens just enough for something bigger to take over. You think you've given up, but really, you've just stopped fighting what's meant to find you. That's the beauty of it. The moment you release control, something shifts. Something starts moving in the dark while you're busy convincing yourself nothing ever will. You see, the biggest surprises don't show up when you're ready. They show up when you're real. When the smile fades, the mask slips, and you finally admit you don't have it all figured out. That's when the universe leans in. That's when heaven pays attention. Because it's not strength that attracts blessings. It's surrender. The moment you say, I can't fix this, the game changes. The storm doesn't calm because you demanded it to. It calms because you stop trying to control the wind. And that's when the surprise walks in, quiet and uninvited, but right on time. You've spent so long expecting disappointment that you almost forgot what hope feels like. You've rehearsed the pain so many times that peace feels unfamiliar. But tonight isn't about the old rhythm of loss. It's about the plot twist no one saw coming. Not even you. The kind that makes you laugh at the irony of it all. The kind that makes the pain finally make sense. Because surprises don't just show up to reward you. They show up to remind you that you were never forgotten. Every tear, every unanswered prayer, every silent night, they weren't ignored. They were noticed. They were noted. And now, the response is on its way. Dressed as a miracle you didn't even know to ask for. It's funny how people think blessings always look like light. They don't. Sometimes they come disguised as endings, rejections, and detours. You cry about what left, not realizing it was clearing space for what's next. You mourn the job, the person, the plan that fell apart. But heaven's there smirking in the background, whispering, just wait. Because the biggest surprises are the ones that come from what you thought destroyed you. It's poetic in a cruel sort of way. The thing that broke you ends up being the reason you rise. The loss becomes the reason you're finally found. You've been tired lately, haven't you? Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, but the kind that lives in your bones. The kind that whispers, maybe this is it. Maybe this is all there is. But that's exactly when something changes. The night before the miracle always feels the darkest. It's the universe's way of testing your patience, to see if you can hold on when everything in you wants to let go. That's the cruel humor of it all. You think nothing's happening, but heaven's working double shifts behind the scenes. Threads are being pulled. Doors are being unlocked. Conversations are being had in rooms you don't even know exist. All you see is silence. All heaven sees is strategy. And when it hits, it'll hit differently. Not with fireworks or grand gestures, but with peace. A strange, steady calm that makes no sense after everything you've been through. You'll wake up one day and realize you're no longer angry, no longer waiting, no longer wounded by what once haunted you. The shift won't be loud, but it'll be real. You'll feel it in the way you breathe, in the way you walk, in the way you stop explaining yourself. That's how surprises work. They change you before they change your life. You become lighter, freer, sharper, more aware. You stop begging for doors to open because you finally understand. You are the door. The world won't understand it, of course. They'll say you're lucky. They'll say it came out of nowhere. But you'll know. You'll remember the nights when you thought it was over, when you begged for a sign and got silence instead. You'll remember every time you forced a smile through the ache, every time you chose faith, when doubt felt louder. And that's why this surprise will mean more than anyone else can comprehend. Because it's not just a blessing. It's a confirmation that your endurance was seen, that your patience mattered, that your pain wasn't wasted. The biggest surprises come when you've stopped expecting anything, because that's when your heart's finally empty enough to be filled. That's when you're open, not desperate, not demanding, just ready. Life has a strange way of giving when you're no longer trying to take. It loves irony like that. The moment you stop chasing what's running, it turns around. The moment you stop needing proof, it appears. That's how divine timing works. It rewards surrender, not strategy. It honors peace, not panic. And when it shows up, you'll laugh, because you'll realize the waiting wasn't punishment. It was preparation. The silence wasn't abandonment. It was setup. You were never behind, never forgotten, never overlooked. You were being saved for the moment that makes it all make sense. It's strange how we curse the waiting, how we despise the delay, how we beg for things to move faster, while not realizing that what feels like nothing is actually everything. You call it silence, heaven calls it setup. You think you're stuck, but really, you're being positioned. Every time something didn't work out, every time someone walked away, every time the timing felt cruel, that was the universe rearranging the pieces. What taking you off a path that would have destroyed you and redirecting you toward one that would rebuild you. You don't see it in the moment because pain blinds you. It whispers that you're forgotten, that your prayers got lost somewhere in the sky. But the truth is, silence is never rejection. It's coordination. It's the sound of destiny getting its act together before the curtain rises. You ever notice how when you force something, it breaks faster? The harder you push, the quicker it slips away. That's because blessings aren't earned through pressure. They're revealed through patience. The irony is, the very thing you think you're losing by waiting, time, is the thing that's actually working for you. Because while you're pacing in frustration, doors are being built in places you haven't even walked yet. You're so focused on what hasn't happened that you forget how much is happening, where you can't see. That's the trick of divine timing. It hides the process to protect your purpose. If you saw everything being arranged, you'd panic, you'd rush, you'd try to interfere. So heaven hides it behind inconvenience, behind stillness, behind what feels like delay. There's a kind of beauty in realizing that denial is often direction. Every closed door you cried about was a favor wearing disguise. The people who didn't believe in you, the ones who underestimated you, the opportunities that crumbled. They were never meant to carry the weight of your calling. You were trying to build castles on sand, and heaven had to let it collapse before you got buried in your own plans. You see, when the foundation's not right, the blessing becomes a burden. So the delay wasn't cruelty, it was protection. It was heaven whispering, not yet. You're not ready, and neither is what's coming. Because timing isn't just about what you want. It's about what can sustain you once you get it. You think about all the times you begged for something, only to thank heaven later for not giving it to you. That person you thought you couldn't live without. That job you thought was your breakthrough. That opportunity you thought was your last shot. Imagine if you had gotten it. Imagine if it had worked. You'd be trapped in something beneath your worth, smiling for the world while dying inside. But now, after everything fell apart, you can finally see it. How it all had to unfold the way it did. That's how divine setups work. They let you walk into disappointment so that when the real thing comes, you recognize it. But while you're in it, it doesn't feel poetic. It feels cruel. It feels like the world's playing a joke on you. You give everything, and it still falls apart. You do good, and you still get hurt. You keep faith, and it still rains. You start to think maybe you're cursed, maybe you're invisible, maybe heaven stopped listening. But that's the test. To see if you'll keep walking when the road disappears. To see if you'll keep building even when no one claps. Because patience isn't passive, it's proof of trust. It's standing still while the world rushes past you, whispering, I know what's mine won't miss me. That kind of faith changes the game. It confuses darkness. It silences fear. It tells heaven, I'm ready, even if I can't see it yet. And then, just when you've made peace with the waiting, the surprise hits. Out of nowhere, no warning, no announcement, no build-up. It just happens. The phone call, the message. The opportunity, the breakthrough. It arrives like a storm that's been gathering for years. And that's when you realize it was never late. It was always scheduled. You weren't being delayed. You were being delivered. Because what's meant for you can't come early. It can't rush into a version of you that still doubts, still panics, still clings. It waits for the version that's calm, clear, unbothered, the version that trusts timing more than control. It's almost funny how the things you once chased start chasing you when you stop running. How peace replaces pressure the moment you stop demanding explanations. How everything starts to align the second you stop trying to force it. That's the paradox of faith. When you stop fighting, everything starts flowing. Heaven doesn't move through desperation. It moves through alignment. And alignment only happens when you're still enough to hear what's meant for you. You don't have to chase the miracle. You just have to be where it expects to find you. So when things slow down, don't panic. When doors close, don't beg. When silence stretches longer than you can handle, don't assume you've been forgotten. That's not stagnation. That's synchronization. Heaven's building something precise, something personal, something too powerful to rush. Because what's on the way isn't small. It's not another lesson, not another almost, not another cycle. It's the thing that makes everything before it makes sense. And when it comes, you'll see why every no had to happen, why every delay was divine, and why you were told to be still. Because what's meant for you doesn't need to be chased. It just needs you to be ready when it finally arrives. It's strange, isn't it? How people only believe something is real when they can see it. They wait for the sign, the proof, the evidence. They say they have faith, but they only trust what's visible. They pray for miracles but panic when nothing moves. They forget that the most powerful shifts happen in silence, in shadows, behind the scenes. You think nothing's happening, but everything is. You think heaven's ignoring you, but it's working overtime to make sure what's meant for you comes dressed in perfect timing, not chaos. It's funny how people want the reward without the preparation, the crown without the cross, the light without the fire. Everyone says they're ready until life starts testing them, stripping them, breaking them down piece by piece. And that's when the truth shows. You see who actually trusts and who only pretends to. You ever wonder why sometimes everything has to collapse before anything gets better? Because some blessings can't fit into the old version of you. You can't carry divine favor with human baggage. You can't move to the next level while still clinging to what hurt you. So heaven starts shaking things loose, one by one, until you've got nothing left to hold but faith. That's when you start seeing differently. When you lose what you thought you couldn't live without and realize it was never meant to stay. When you're stripped of control and all you can do is wait. That's when strength stops being a word and becomes your heartbeat. That's when you understand survival isn't about escaping pain. It's about enduring it until it shapes you into something unbreakable. People think being lifted up means being celebrated. They picture applause, admiration, the spotlight. But the real lifting happens in silence, when no one's watching, when no one believes in you. The lifting happens when you're crawling through nights that feel endless, whispering prayers you're not even sure are heard. That's the kind of lifting that builds you. quietly, painfully, completely. Because when you rise again, it's not with pride, it's with power. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that doesn't need an audience. The kind that doesn't fall apart when things go wrong, because it knows who held you together when no one else did. There's something hauntingly beautiful about being broken and rebuilt. When you've hit the bottom, when you've seen every illusion shatter, when you've buried parts of yourself that will never return, that's when clarity comes. That's when you start seeing the world differently. You stop chasing people. You stop begging for love. You stop needing approval. You start realizing that if something leaves, it wasn't loss. It was alignment. You begin to understand that not every ending is tragedy. Sometimes it's divine punctuation. A way of saying, that chapter served its purpose. Now turn the page. You ever feel like heaven is silent? Like it's just watching you struggle and do nothing? That silence isn't absence. It's observation. It's watching if you'll keep trusting when nothing makes sense. It's watching if you'll keep your integrity when you could easily quit. It's watching if you'll keep walking when the path disappears. You see, heaven doesn't reward noise. It rewards endurance. It doesn't hand out blessings because you begged. It releases them when you've proven you can handle them. And sometimes the test isn't in the battle. It's in the waiting after. Waiting when you're tired. Waiting when you've cried enough. Waiting when you've lost everything, but still refuse to give up. That's when the shift happens. That's when the surprise unfolds. And when it comes, it doesn't come quietly. It arrives like lightning in a night sky that everyone thought was dead. The very doors that slammed in your face start opening. The people who ignored you start watching. The opportunities you thought you missed start circling back. That's the thing about divine timing. It never forgets. It just arrives fashionably late. And when it does, it doesn't just restore what you lost. It multiplies it. The kind of multiplication that makes people wonder how you survived, how you still smile, how you're still standing. They won't understand that you didn't just survive. You were rebuilt. You know what's funny? People will think it happened overnight. They'll see the breakthrough, the glow up, the success, and think it just appeared. They won't know about the nights you cried yourself to sleep, the prayers you whispered under your breath, the countless times you almost gave up. They won't see the pain that shaped the peace. But you'll know. You'll know how it felt to walk through fire without burning, to lose everything only to realize you never lost yourself. That's when you'll smile, not because it's easy, but because it finally makes sense. Because every delay was a setup. Every tear was a seed. Every setback was just heaven pulling you back like a slingshot. So when it launched you, you'd soar higher than anyone thought possible. That's the real surprise. Not that you made it, but that you became something greater than what tried to destroy you. That's what heaven was preparing. Not just a breakthrough, but a transformation. Because sometimes Being lifted isn't about going higher. It's about going deeper. Deeper into peace, deeper into purpose, deeper into the person you were always meant to be. And when that happens, when the storm finally clears and you look around, you'll realize the truth. Heaven didn't just lift you up. It rebuilt you from the ashes so you'd never fall the same way again. It's strange how people love to talk about blessings, but they never talk about the breaking that comes before them. Everyone wants to be chosen, but no one wants to be tested. They want the crown, but not the crushing, the glory, but not the grind. They see the reward, but not the road. It's funny, really, how people think elevation is just about luck, when in truth, it's about survival. You can't be lifted until you've been lowered. You can't rise until you've been buried. And you can't shine until you've walked through a darkness that almost consumed you. That's the real process. That's the real price. You see, when life decides to break you, it doesn't ask for permission. It just starts taking your comfort, your peace, your people. It rips apart everything you thought you needed until you're standing in a pile of what used to be stability. And that's when you start asking why. Why you? Why now? Why this pain? But that's the point. Because pain doesn't come to punish you. It comes to position you. It clears out what can't stay, so that what's meant to be can finally take shape. And the moment you understand that, everything changes. You stop seeing pain as your enemy and start recognizing it as your teacher. Because nothing teaches faster than heartbreak, and nothing builds character like betrayal. People will walk out on you and call it self-care. They'll stab you in the back and call it growth. They'll lie about you just to feel lighter about themselves. And you'll want to fight it, defend yourself, prove your worth. But the truth is, you don't need to. You see, when people try to destroy you, all they really do is reveal who they are and remind you of who you're not. They think they buried you, but you were a seed. They thought the dirt would hide you, but it's what's helping you grow. And when that growth starts showing, when heaven decides to lift you from the same soil they threw you into, the silence of your comeback will be louder than any revenge you could have ever planned. You ever notice how sometimes the people you loved the most are the ones who cause the deepest cuts? It's always the familiar hands that leave the sharpest wounds. That's because not every connection was meant to last. Some were meant to wake you up, to show you the difference between loyalty and attachment, between love and dependency. You can't carry everyone to your next chapter, and not everyone clapping for you wants to see you win. Some are just waiting to see if you'll fall again. But here's the secret. Once heaven decides to lift you, no one can pull you down. Not with gossip, not with envy, not even with hate. Because what's divine can't be denied. And what's written for you doesn't need validation. It's almost poetic, the way the story flips. The same people who ignored you start asking about you. The same ones who doubted you start quoting you. The same ones who laughed behind your back start pretending they always believed in you. That's what happens when heaven steps in. It doesn't ask for their permission. It just lifts you publicly for what you endured privately. And that's the moment they realize your silence wasn't weakness. It was preparation. You weren't done. You were developing. You weren't losing. You were leveling. Every rejection, every delay, every not yet was heaven's way of saying, hold on. I'm building something they won't understand. And when it happens, when that shift finally arrives, people won't know how to act. They'll say it's luck. They'll say you changed. They'll try to minimize it because they can't explain it. But you'll know. You'll know that every lonely night was necessary. Every tear was currency. Every heartbreak was construction. Heaven was building your foundation while the world was watching your collapse. That's why it takes time. Because strong things aren't built overnight. The process is painful because the product is permanent. You know what's interesting? Most people pray for blessings, but they don't pray for the strength to handle them. They want the success, but not the solitude, the miracle, but not the molding. That's why heaven doesn't always say yes immediately. Sometimes it holds back what you want until you're ready to hold it without breaking. Because elevation without preparation is self-destruction. So if it's taking longer than you expected, maybe it's not denial. Maybe it's protection. Maybe heaven is making sure when the blessing comes, it stays. The thing about divine timing is, it doesn't care about your schedule. It moves when it's supposed to. It shows up when it's ready. And when it does, it doesn't knock. It kicks the door open. You won't have to chase it. You won't have to prove anything. You'll just find yourself in places you didn't apply for, talking to people you once admired, living moments you used to only dream about. That's the beauty of divine lifting. It doesn't just bless you. It exposes the lies that were told about you. It proves that you were never the problem. You were the purpose. So when everything starts falling apart, don't panic. The breaking is a setup. The silence is strategy. The loss is leverage. Because when heaven gets ready to lift you, it doesn't announce it. It just does. And when it does, every person who thought you were finished will have to watch you stand in the very spotlight they said you'd never reach. They'll watch you shine from the same darkness they threw you in, and they won't understand how. But you will. Because the truth is, you didn't just survive the fall. You learned how to fly through it. When heaven moves, it never asks for permission. It doesn't send an email. It doesn't wait for approval. And it definitely doesn't care who's comfortable with the change. It just moves. Swift, quiet, unstoppable. One moment everything feels still, predictable, even boring. And then suddenly, everything shifts. The kind of shift you can't explain, but you can feel it in your bones. It's not chaos, it's correction. It's not random, it's rearrangement. Because heaven doesn't consult people before it promotes someone. It doesn't ask your enemies if they're okay with your rise. It doesn't check your past for permission to bless your future. It just decides. And when it decides, it's already done. People like control. They like to think they decide who wins, who shines, who gets the opportunities. They whisper in rooms. They form circles. They play politics. But what they don't understand is that the divine doesn't need a vote. The decision about your destiny was never made at their table. It was written in silence, long before they even knew your name. They can delay it, distract you, discourage you, but they can't deny what's already designed. That's the part that drives them mad. The realization that no matter how many lies they tell, no matter how many obstacles they throw, when heaven moves, it moves right through them. You ever notice how uncomfortable people get when you start rising? Not because they want you to fail, but because they want you to stay where they can understand you. People can handle your struggle, but not your success. They were fine when you were broken, relatable, easy to pity. But the moment heaven starts to lift you, they panic. They start to distance themselves, to question you, to call you lucky, because they can't explain what's happening. They thought your pain would keep you in place, but it became your passport out of limitation. They thought your silence meant defeat, but it was actually strategy. That's the thing about divine movement. It exposes people faster than truth ever could. When heaven moves, it doesn't wait for everyone to be ready. It doesn't need everyone's blessing.